Classroom management. Let's take a look. First off, in a room that is well managed, usually it's orderly and focused on learning. There's a lot of visual prompts to help students stay on task, remember the routines, and know their expectations. The room should also be physically and emotionally safe. You can't really feel maybe the emotional level as an outside observer initially, but maybe later on you'll be able to sense it, or you'll get an idea of which students work well together and how the cliques work in the classroom. So I think that's your first impression should help you decide if you are in an environment that is a well-managed classroom. So orderly doesn't mean rigid, and by the same token, disorder does not mean it's creative. It can just be chaotic. So take a look at the room and make some judgments about what you feel is rigid or is too stifling for student creativity, but also consider things in the room that are too cluttered or chaotic that are stopping students from being able to learn because they're overwhelmed with this visual stimulus or distracted. In the room, you should also notice that students are on task, and when they're not, watch and see what happens to students around them, or how the teacher responds to a student who is not acting appropriately, and she's able to, or he's able to keep the lesson going while still pulling that student back into line and continuing on. It's a tough trick for sure. If you can at all judge the respect level between student to student as well as teacher to student, that would be insightful. I think it's hard to do initially, but maybe towards the end you'll have a better idea. But the respect level is a real critical foundation piece to having good classroom management. One of the things I noticed when I was teaching is that my first year I yelled far more than I did in my subsequent years, and by the 5th year I never yelled. I had it down. I knew exactly how to handle most of the behavioral problems that came up, and I would stop them before they ever got to the point where I had to yell. But I'll just own it, man. That first year I yelled and it was completely ineffective. So it's good to see that, because I never had the opportunity to do observations before I was a teacher, and I think being able to know that going in is a huge asset. There's 4 levels of classroom time. They're defined here, so you can pause it and read it. I think they're fairly self-explanatory. As you're reading, you might want to note instructional time. How much time did they spend teaching versus how much time is actually given to allow the students to engage in the activity and to learn. So effective teaching, it means using differentiated instruction, and differentiated instruction means presenting a task or a learning objective in several different ways so that you can meet the learning styles of your students, because everybody learns a little bit differently. And if you can present material in several different ways, it engages students better, and they also learn better and more completely. So in addition to how you teach, you have to have the classroom management there that gives you the base, the foundation to be able to do creative instruction. With-itness is a term you may have not heard, and basically it just means having eyeballs in the back of your head. That's what I think it means. It means being aware of everything that's going on in your classroom, even if your back's turned and you're wiping off the eraser board. Students know very quickly what they can get away with and how much you will see and respond to, or ignore, or pretend not to see. And there's reasons to do all of those things, actually. And you might think, oh no, I gotta catch every single thing every time and be on it 24/7, and you do have to be on it. And you can do responses to things, behaviors that are not appropriate. You can do a facial expression that your students will learn means stop it, I saw that, but I'm going to ignore it because I don't want to interrupt my lesson. And sometimes that's all they want. They really just want attention, and just giving them that look or a wink. I never used to wink until I became a teacher. Now I wink all the time. I wink at my kids. I don't even know I'm doing it. And that's just another way that you're constantly engaging with students without breaking your stride in your lesson. And as I've said before, when you teach, you are doing multiple things at one time. You'll be teaching what you're actually engaged in teaching at the moment, plus thinking ahead about 3 steps, plus looking for behavioral problems, and then you'll get somebody who will come to the door who will want to hand you a note about someone's parent who called and they need Johnny to call them about their lunch, or you're just always juggling lots of different things. So to say that you're tending to 2 issues at the same time on this slide is a bit of an understatement, because I think you tend to about 10 at one time, mostly throughout the day. Okay, as you're doing your observations, check and see how punishment is doled out, and I'd be interested to know if that's effective. Is negative punishment work in the class, or does your teacher use positive reinforcement when they do something right? A student does something right, they praise them rather than only punishing them when they do something inappropriate or quote-unquote wrong. Do they give choices that enable students to pick a better path for behavior? I did that a ton. You can choose to do this, or you can go see the principal. And it was really simple choices, but even the act of doing that, and it can help you with your respect level instead of just doling out ultimatums. If you can couch it in a choice, that will help build your relationships with your students. Okay, definitely look for nonverbal communications. Look for nonverbal communications teachers use, because those are always fun to pick up on, and I've taken up a few from other people that have been really effective. And I believe that's it. Have fun in your observations.